Hi everyone. Nice to see you here on our conference. Today I will tell you a lot more about plugin development because for sure Marketplace Plugin Developer Conf is all about developer plugins for JetBrains IDEs. And today our topic is all about indexing and how you could improve your like plugin to make it better, much better in terms of UX and UI for your users. And it's all about that, yes. So my name is Yuri. I am a product manager at IntelliJ platform, but also I do like code, still write code a lot and develop even my own plugins. You could find them on the marketplace. And usually I try to tell you more about improving plugins and your like features that you deliver. So today we'll talk about like the same. I will tell you more how you could improve them, and the topic will be all about improving perception of plugins, features, and like how your plugin behaves when there are no indexes. For sure, indexing is a huge problem. You've probably seen this very famous X Cassidy um, slide or comics where two programmers fighting and like their boss asking like, "Hey, get back to work," but they have a legitimate excuse. And in our case, legitimate excuse is IntelliJ is indexing stuff so folks can carry on and do not, go back to their work. Uh, it is the same for last, I would say, 20 years or even more. Like IntelliJ is already like older than 20 years. And when I first met with IntelliJ in 2010, I guess, I used IntelliJ IDEA 9. And back then, I waited like a couple of minutes straight, and I was not able to do anything. Like I'm staring at the screen, waiting for my ID, indexing all my code, and only when it finishes completely, I was able to work. And even then, my colleagues say like, "Hey, you should definitely wait because after the waiting, all the powerful features come and you will be able to search, use code completion, refactorings are powerful, and now your IDE is functioning. But today it is not the same as back then. Today IDE is able to do a lot more for you, even when indexes are not available. And we today talking about how we could improve the life of our users when indexing is not like indices. I mean, like files with all the identifiers, for instance, are not here. And it is all about progressive enhancement of our functionality. Initially, indexing was truly required for implementation of powerful features in IntelliJ IDEA, such as refactorings, searches, code completion, and stuff. But during all these years, we improved the situation. And now, if we switch to IDE, for instance, here, you can do a lot more things while IDE still indexes stuff such as search, code completion, navigation, and many other features available in IDE out of the box. Let's see how we achieved that and what changed and how it helps you as well. Like many years ago in 2020, our team invested heavily into making indices more robust. What does it mean? It means that for certain features, like code completion, for instance, or search everywhere, users do not really need to wait for fully like built indexes. Like by nature of the feature, by the nature of code completion, for many like situations, you would be okay having at least partial results. Like everything what is already available on indices would be sufficient for you to complete statements or identifiers or search through the code. And with this bright idea, our team decided to implement a special mechanism to access indices while they're still in progress, while indexer still goes through the code and indexes all the files you have on disk and in your project. And initially, this functionality was implemented for Java and PHP, and later on, many other plugins implemented the same features and expanded this functionality. So now you can certainly use both code completion, search area, and go to declaration. Going to declaration from the uh, statement and code, and you now use them even when indexing is still in progress. And from what we see from our statistics and feedback from users, many people actually enjoy that, like this feature, and they now can use IDE much earlier than even before, and do not wait for fully available indexing, and like start their work much earlier. Sometimes people even say like, "Hey, folks, I cannot even now have a proper cup of coffee because ID now is already available. You can do everything, highlighting present, and now I should work. I cannot just have the same excuse as 10 or 20 years ago." What else? In 2024, like this year, in the start of the year, we decided to invest a lot more into perceived performance of our products, and we improved the situation further, such as we implemented icon providers for certain frameworks and languages, which, for instance, for YAML or JSON or other popular file formats where you need to explore file content in order to decide which file it is. For instance, I don't know, Kubernetes. In Kubernetes, in order to decide that file, like YAML file, is a Kubernetes file, you have to open this file and check the content. In this situation, indexes are not really needed. You can do that based on the file content. And also this summer, we introduced even more complex and like powerful model for Java. We implemented incomplete dependencies model, which enables IDE to use like indexing and all features while it still downloads Gradle and Maven dependencies. You can check IntelliJ IDEA release notes for that. And in the upcoming version, it doesn't stop. In the next version, we will also enable inspections and intentions so they can work even when indexes are not here, which enables even more features for you and your plugins. And just to highlight how it looked and how it looks now and the difference, so you truly understand why we asking you and our teams to invest here, you could compare these two situations. Both screenshots are captured when ID still uh, just open project, uh, clean checkout. It still indexes all the code, but in the first, you see it is like almost fully functional ID. Like I cannot even say what is not here. Everything is colored. I see line markers available. I truly can now use the ID. And on the like in the bottom, you see the picture of the last year release of IntelliJ IDEA 2023.3. You see highlighting is not full, only Lexer is used to highlight stuff. There are no line markers and many identifiers are not highlighted. So it is not something I would use. I would wait. I would wait until all the progress bars disappear, and only then I would go and use my ID. Fortunately, we are in the situation when we already have a lot of improved like code and plugins, and users see the picture, the same picture as in the bottom, or is in the top, sorry. Yeah, and this picture is here to encourage all you to take a look at your plugins and how you can improve them and how you can, make them better for your users. And if we are talking about the next release, you can also see this picture in the available early access version we already published. Grammar checks and the spelling checks already work during indexing. So users even can start working on some texts, such as, I don't know, markdown texts or ASCII doc text, for instance, and they can already see some highlights, errors, warnings provided by IDE. And the same functionality is available for your plugins, so you can make your inspections work in dump mode. So what is dump mode and why I'm saying that? Let's go back to IDE. We call ID dump. Do not, it is not offensive for ID, we believe. It is okay for ID to be dump sometimes. When ID still indexes project, so there's some indexing indicator, and you can see it is not fully functional. You can put ID is in such state by going to Tools, Internal Actions, and enter Dump Mode. In this like simulation, ID will work just in case it doesn't have any indexes. So some things disappear, but many things still work. For instance, I can navigate. Yeah, I can use code completion to some degree. Yeah, but also you see these results might be incomplete during indexes, which clearly shows users that, hey, there are still some, progresses, which is, not all data shown. You should wait if you do not see something you expected to see. But in many situations, this is already helpful. You already can use like many features. And this situation is called dump mode when indexes are not available yet. And you can also enter and exit dump mode while developing plugins. This action is available in internal mode for you in your plugins and the debug instance of ID. This is what we called actually dump mode when IDE still indexes a lot of files. Uh, well, but you'll say, well, my features still need some kind of index access. I would like to, find something in files, or I have to use some like at least partially available indexes. I have some recipes for you. First of all, as I already mentioned, back then in 2020, we already introduced new API for you. API, the main API entry point is dump mode access type. Let me find this class. Dump mode access type. Yeah, this is the modes available for you to read indexes and do not stumble upon index not ready exception, which is thrown every time you attempt to read indexes in dump mode. Those two, reliable data only and raw index data acceptable, allow you to ignore dump mode for a certain index access operation. So this is how you can go and at least see like use query or use some file index access to see what is already indexed, even when indexing still in progress. This is powerful. This is what we use for code completion. This is what we use for search everywhere and many other features which we can, degrade a bit to make them still functioning, still useful during indexing. What else? I should remind you that PC access, such as reading PSI and reading PSI 3 with elements and like syntax elements available on the file, do not require indexing at all. Like you can read, you can traverse, you can access values and lifts and all the like structure of a file, and it is available for you during dump mode. There's no index access in there. There's also one additional useful class called gist manager. You can read about it more on our documentation. But what it does, this manager is a file-based, I would say, cached value. It is a some computation you can do based on PSI or AST and persistently store such a cached value. It is also helpful in cases when you do not need full-blown indexes, but when you only need some kind of cache for a file. We heavily use them, GISTs and GIST Manager for things such as data flow analysis in Java, for instance, for icon providers. In many cases, we use GIST Manager to store if certain YAML file, for instance, is Kubernetes file or not. It's one example from our plugins. And also, I should remind you that reading workspace model, module manager, list of modules, virtual files, and accessing parents and children of virtual files do not require any index access as well. So those operations, they can be, they are available for you even when indexing is in progress. This is what you can do. Even if, like in many situations, you can check if dump mode is happening. How you do that? You go to dump service for sure. Dump service, which is our main entry point for managing the IDE's dump mode. Yeah, and here there is only one method which says if currently like ID is in dump mode or not, and you can just make a condition, check this, and decide if you should degrade your functionality somehow, or you should implement some uh, tricky feature instead, access incomplete indexes maybe, or maybe use some another technique such as, I don't know, alternative resolve in Java, for instance. Java, in cases when it needs to navigate somewhere while indexing still in progress, what it does, it uses virtual file system modules, content entries to try to find files still by file tree using slow path. This is also what you can actually do. So you could check dump service is dump, and then it is dump. You can use some kind of a fallback with one of techniques which I just suggested to you. So we can ignore dump mode, we can access PSI directly, still we can use some caching on top, such as GIST Manager, and also workspace model and DFS access doesn't require any indexing, any indexes available. Where you can start, how you can decide what to improve first and what's next and in which order. I have the following list of suggested, I would say, functionality that you could make dump aware. Dump aware is also an interface. Let's go and find it. Dump aware, which means that a class or an extension is fully ready to be called while indexing is still in progress. This interface helps us to decide that it is safe to call your features, your functionality, when we are not sure if you already handled properly such mode of ID or not. And you can find all features that you can make. Oh, sorry. You can make dump-aware by exploring inheritors of possibly dump-aware interface. Like all features in ID which can potentially be implemented for such mode is marked with possibly dump-aware interface. Okay. And I suggest that you first check your actions for sure and action implementations. Usually people forget that an action, like a button, a toolbar button, also is disabled during dump mode. And you could check it easily, like what I say to you. When we go and enter dump mode, yeah, we can see that in many like menus, some actions are not available because they do not implement dump-aware interface. But if you do, your button or action would still be available, and you would, somehow decide how you should implement that. For instance, reformat code action doesn't need any indexes. It can work even when indexes are not here. But rename refactor, which requires some searches, some checks and assertions, cannot work in this mode. That's why it is disabled by default. Okay. We're actually not sure it was a good decision back then to, go from the uh, dumb-aware and only explicitly enable it. Probably if we would design it today, we would go the other way. We would probably only mark features that are not available in dump mode with, like, I don't know, requires indexes interface or something like this. You can also read more about dump mode and its implications in our documentation for IntelliJ SDK. As usually, there are some highlights, references, and even list of extension points which support such, progressive enhancement for your plugins. And here is I will show you how you would apply it in a real life project. I have a plugin here. What it does, it's a plugin for JHipster language. Like it implements this functionality. It highlights, completes, shows some, code completion for JHipster files. And my plugin implements all that, highlighting, completion, navigation, something else. And if we check dump mode for it, okay, we can see that yeah, you see, code completion doesn't work actually in my plugin during dump mode. Let's maybe check it, how we would, fix it. I go to my project. Here I will run on the project, I will run special inspection. I would like to thank Jan Sabron, our developer advocate, who built such inspection, which checks your code and highlights all the extensions that can be dumb-aware. So I just choose that, run inspection on my code. Here you see it quickly finds my code completion providers, GDL completion contributor in my case. And if I go here, I see it is a completion contributor. Uh, I already know that it does not need indexes actually. What it does, it just uses some specification, some hard-coded basically values, keywords, and stuff. So what I can do, I will enable dumb aware for it. So I will implement dumb aware interface on this class, you see. When I start my app again, exit, it should be applied. And all these completion suggestions should appear even when I have dump mode running. Let's try. So I added implements dumbaware for my completion contributor. Let's go. Waiting to start. And now we'll see if in dump mode we have code completion. As I shown you already, go to search everywhere and put ID into dump mode. Now we see here that it is running dump mode, and yeah, and voila! Now we have code completion available even when results might be incomplete during indexing. So our users are happy, much happier than even before, and then now can use ID when it still indexes stuff. Great. Let me exit dump mode. Nice. We implemented this strategy. So this strategy, what I suggest you to do with your plugin, run the inspection by Jan, which is, checks all your extensions if they can be implemented as a dumb-aware. Check list of priorities I already highlighted for you. Then let's choose the strategy. What do I mean by strategy? I mean one of those. Should we ignore dump mode in certain features, or should we directly read some PSI from the current file, for instance, only? Or should we explore workspace model and virtual files around to provide some features? And then we go implement that strategy. In my case, yeah, I know I'm cheating. I shown just the simplest possible solution. Just mark your action or code completion contributor with dumb-aware. Then we go and check if everything works with dump mode in our ID. For sure, you can cover such functionality with tests. You can use a special helper in test classes, which is available, which enables you to put ID into dump mode, even in tests. So we can use that. And then finally, we can deliver our solution to users. They would be happy and they will know you care about them. And yeah, now IDE is much better, much more robust, and you can work right away. For sure, many people will not be happy. They will say you just, do not let them coffee in the morning because now IDE is just fully functional right away. But yeah, let's do not think of it. They should find another excuse and have coffee still. Yeah, uh, that's probably the main thing I would like to highlight for you today. But also, I would encourage you to explore our documentation. We have, these great docs available. If you go there, you will see that there are extension points in our Explorer marked as dumb-aware for you conveniently, so you can easily find them and implement such functionality. In many our plugins, you can also easily find features implemented like that. For instance, if I go to um, annotator of my language, which highlights the code, and you see dumb-aware here, you see how I resolve situations when I still need, some indexing and how I degrade the functionality. For instance, in case of resolve required for my feature in dump mode, I can decide to not highlight such code, such features during dump mode. It is just this one line. So if in the moment of highlighting my project and my ID is still indexing stuff, I just degrade this and do not highlight unresolved symbols, for instance. Yeah. But also many other features such as, I don't know, inspections, for instance, then they also can easily be made dumb-aware. Why? Because in many situations, for my code, for instance, it simply accesses PSI. As I already mentioned, a simple access to PSI tree and elements do not require indexes in any way, and you can easily implement that. Yeah. Well, that's all, folks, I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. You probably have some questions for me. Let's maybe proceed to questions then, and I will tell you even more about some quirks, applications, and useful features that you can build.
Thank you, Yuri. That was a very quick and deep dive still into dumb-aware and all the related stuff. You mentioned the inspection and plugin dev kit that can check dumb-aware API. I think it is included in 2024.3 release only. At least that's what I remember.
Yeah,
So
but
if,
we would ask people to use EP version more.
yes, of course, as a plugin developer, you are always on EAP version minimum, right? If you don't build community from sources like real developers do.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can give that inspection a try. One thing I wanted to note about this is that it requires that the API is explicitly marked with possibly dump-aware, and that is something that we did only, I think, to a large degree, starting with 24.2 IDE. So running the inspection against, if your plugin project is configured to build against an earlier IDE version than 24.2, you will most likely not get all the results that are possible even in earlier versions of the IDE, because simply the API has not been marked as possibly dump-aware. So one step you could take is to quickly change and try change your project to build against 24.2 or .3 and see the results there. And this will be a much bigger picture than building against an earlier version of the IDE. Yes, there's a couple of questions from the audience. Let's start with this one. So is it possible to run tests in dump mode? Yes.
Yes, right. It is quite possible. You also have a special helper, I would say, in dump service util or something. We have it. We use it. You can put ID into dump mode in a test to check how your functionality works inside. It is also possible to do it during UI testing for sure, because in UI tests you can call the same action I shown. You basically can call enter dump mode action, and then IDE works as in like this mode.
Yes, yeah. And you can also test for dump mode in regular unit tests. There's a couple of test helpers there as well. I don't remember them by heart right now, but you can find this. And we also need to expand the documentation in the SDK docs about that. And about dump-aware classes, how will they be called when the project comes back to non-dump mode? Will it be called again, twice, or who controls that?
I guess it heavily depends on extension point. Many
Yes.
extensions, such as annotators or inspections, will restart because IDE knows that all highlighting work must be restarted, and it will re-highlight the file then. But if, for instance, we're talking about actions, only visible actions will receive update call once again and will update, because we also re-update all the actions when we exit the mode. For your own functionality, such as UI, for instance, you build, in certain situations, maybe you will need to subscribe to a dump service topic and restart some work you did in your custom UI, if you have some. But for many built-in solutions, such as dump mode for tool windows, for instance, tool window will show automatically. If it doesn't support dump mode, we will put it to like mode which says this tool window is not available, and then we'll enable it automatically back when we exit dump mode. So
Yes.
yeah, for most of the features of editor, it will be automatic. For your custom own features, sometimes you'll need to subscribe to a certain event.
Yes. And again, you can test all of this very easily if you switch on internal mode and just toggle the dump mode. I think there's also another mode that lets dump mode kick in a irregular fashion, like to interrupt the IDE. I don't remember the exact name, but I think there was some other internal action to do that, basically to trigger dump mode in
Yes, there
unexpected
is.
timing.
I like that. It is called tremble dump mode.
Yeah,
When
right.
IDE accidentally switch on
Yeah,
and off dump
yeah.
mode, and you
Just
can
like in
see
real world.
a discotheque in your IDE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question from Dimitri. Is it cheap enough to call a dump mode?
I believe it is cheap enough. It is basically a volatile read one. So if you're already in read action or write action, even in the loops, you may easily retry it. It is not costly, but in many situations, it is just more easy to have it stored in a local variable, like to have it, already computed, and especially if you do some concurrency on your own with manual read write actions. In this situation, you would better, control it when you check state of the app in concurrency applications.
Yeah, I see. So the dump mode, as we just learned, can start and stop anytime. And how will this affect read actions?
Yeah,
And
let me expand on that.
possibly some other threading stuff.
Yeah, phrasing is important. I can tell you right now that dump mode cannot easily kick in if we have active read actions. It will not. Like in order to switch there, we must get write access first. ID will only kick in to dump mode if it successfully manages to get write lock. So like no parallel reads in that moment. If you already have a read action and read lock, you may safely assume that for the entire computation, dump mode result, like is dump mode result, will not change. It is either dump for the entire redaction, or it is like smart, let's say, and has indexes inconsistent and available state. So
Yes.
either this or that, and it will not, accidentally change while you still do stuff. It is not the same, unfortunately, for like it is a bit different for redactions in coroutines, because redactions in coroutines are retriable. They may, restart because of writes. So in those restarted situations, you may in like 2 runs, 3 runs, more runs, you may accidentally observe changed state then if you use regular redaction and not a smart one. But yes, for the entire read transaction, let's say, you would see consistent result of is dump, and indexes only may be changed if redactions finish.
Yes. What do you think about this idea to mark dump aware extension points in the plugin descriptor instead of marking them as dump aware in the code?
I don't know. It seems we've chosen one way at the moment to mark all those in the code, and to not mark all of them in metadata, because we already have instances of extensions when we operate them. We certainly do not need many ways to mark those, because we have enough, I would say, problems with parallel functionality and parallel stuff. So I would keep the current state and do not multiply ways of doing things. It would, blow up dev kit support and minds of people.
Yeah, and I actually think it makes sense to have this in the code, because we have a lot of places where you actually make switches in the code, right? When you say you have like an annotator, like your example you had, and it does mostly syntax highlighting, but also some resolve, right? Then you would need to split out the annotator into two instances just to be able to mark it in the plugin XML. So that's a bit maybe a bit too much.
Yes.
Any tips how to implement fallback resolving in dump mode? This is basically, I think, mostly about the Java support, because
Not only many
only.
different things have a resolve. I don't know, even YAML for Kubernetes have resolve some kind of.
Yeah.
In those situations, it heavily depends on your domain. So
Yes.
what kind of resolve you have in terms of the same, like JSON schema, for instance. Yeah, in many situations we can easily do resolve because we only need to traverse file tree via virtual file, and then it is like easy. We just have full-blown resolve then, even in dump mode, because we do not need indices. In cases when we do need indexes, you may use first incomplete index access, as I highlighted, on dump mode access type, and ignore dump mode call. it would be sufficient for most of applications, I believe. If you have much more complex resolve, I don't know, big language such as Python or Ruby or something else, maybe you need to invest into more custom ways of traversing modules, their content entries, and some heuristics would help, but they all, heavily depend on your domain. So how
Yes.
you do resolve in the language.
Yeah. Okay, last question, and then we need to move to the next talk, how to trigger the tremble mode. I think we mentioned it earlier. So you need to enable internal mode in the IDE. You can look up how to do this in the SDK docs. And then there will be an action called enter tremble dump mode.
Yes.
So you can just use go to action. Help find action, I think is the correct name in the UI. And then this action will start annoying you, and then
I see. People love discotheque.
and then you can invoke it again to exit tremble dump mode. So it's very similar to the full dump mode switch that Yuriy showed already in his talk. Yeah. Right. So let's be smarter and dump aware. Thank you, Yuriy, to highlight all the things that people can quite easily do actually in their plugins. It will be interesting to see how many plugins pick up on this.
Yes,
On
please do.
functionality.
Please improve UX. We encourage you folks to take a look at
Yes.
this and improve your plugins. Thank you all for great questions. See you again.